Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
There we are. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Give God 90. We are live on a Thursday night, back on our regular schedule. Anything special happening today? I don't think so.
No.
Okay, good.
Not that I know
So
of.
we don't know of anything that we have to really address to get things going and make sure we're all where we're supposed to be, right?
Right.
Okay. Oh, by the way, we are Jerry and Myra Mitchell. We're here live on a
Hi.
Thursday night, just like we usually are. Nothing's keeping us from doing that, especially as we do the things we usually do during the way the world is now. Right. So, for all of the new folks that are joining, don't forget you can download the Give God 90 app. It's absolutely free. Somebody else paid for it, so you don't have to. But if you really like what you hear and you want to pay for it so somebody else doesn't have to, feel free. There is a button down there on the GiveGod90.com more page, I believe is where it's at. You can find that and you can take care of that through PayPal if you'd like to. Don't forget there's a couple of books that we have out. Traditions of Truth. And I see Pam's joined us. Thank you, Pam, for watching.
Hi, Pam.
God's Universe, God's Rules. Don't forget those. Those are good resources for you to take into account. And I spelled welcome wrong on my Spreaker greeting. Sorry, guys, for all the folks on Spreaker. People on Facebook didn't need to know that, though. Okay, before we get started in all earnesty tonight, I want to address something for all the conspiracy people. Because, let's face it, there's conspiracy theorists in the world, right? I want to give you something to think about. And this is the question that you need to ponder. What if Trump and Putin and Boris Johnson and all of the other world leaders all around the world, okay? What if they're being used by the Creator? Okay, are you following me so far? What if they're being used by the Creator to separate true believers from the people who are just kind of along for the ride? Because what we're looking at is something interesting that's going on. I see Rebecca's joined us. Thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
What we're seeing is something really, really interesting because, the world today, we have this group of leaders, and don't think for a second that, somebody who is, whether it's an elected political official or a dictator or somebody who has been in the right family to get where they are, the head of a nation, chances are they're not going to know anything about the virus. They're not going to know anything, they might not even know anything about economics. They just maybe are really good at logistics. Or they might not be any good at anything, depending on who you ask in the country they're in or trying to run. But it doesn't mean that the Almighty can't use them to accomplish His purpose. And if He is trying to drive that dividing line to find out who's really on God's side or who's just, it's a really good idea. Maybe if I use going to church kind of like fire insurance, because I don't want to go to that really hot place. Friend of ours came out a few years ago with these things called get out of hell free cards, kind of like the Monopoly get out of jail free. So if that's what they're trying to do, is God really starting to say, okay, who's really paying attention to what's in my word and who's just along for the ride? Who's really getting this? See, Jay, hey, Jay, you got your
Hi, Jay.
router.
Hi, Tina. Hi, Carol.
For for that to be that kind of interesting, though, I thought that was kind of cool. We look at these things and we say, what if God's using these people? What if God's using these people to do that? Find out who's really reading the Scripture, who understands it, and who is just out there going, well, it says this in Revelation, and it says this in Isaiah, and it says this somewhere else, and they can't put it all together. They're just along for the ride. And the people that we're trying to reach are the people who may have been along for the ride, now they're digging a little deeper, or the people who are really been digging all along. Because the things we get into, we teach the teachers. So we give them the information they need so that when these people start asking questions, they have answers, just like Peter tells us. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing that I saw on the news this week, excuse me, in the Bronx Zoo, there was a tiger that contracted COVID-19, and they believe that it was a zookeeper, one of the zookeepers who was tested positive, that gave it to this tiger. But the Humane Society has been promoting for the last several weeks, your pets can't give it to you. Don't worry about it. But if we can give it to animals, then it should work both ways. This does not necessarily seem to be a species-specific organism. Mm-hmm. So was it something that the tiger was eating in his diet that wasn't protecting the tiger, or is this a not bilateral but communicable thing cross species? So we don't know. And there's a lot of things like that we just don't have the answers to yet. We really can't, I shouldn't say this, but we really can't trust the people who are giving. There's Deb's watching. Hi, Deb. I know Daryl's probably there with you too. We really can't trust the people who are giving us the information if they don't have the proper information to give to us. Now, I'm not saying we can't trust the government, all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, if the people who have been supposedly studying this haven't gotten the answers to the questions that we're asking, then they're not going to know the answers to be able to give them to us. Mm-hmm. So that's legitimate. And I look at all of those things specifically because of something I heard this morning, and that is the people in the health community can't agree on this curve thing that they have going on. Some say that if you have a shorter curve, then you have a longer term problem. But if we were to take and just advise the people who are at the most risk, like the older folks, the people who have lung issues anyway, like asthma or COPD, emphysema, that kind of thing, and tell them, look, you need to isolate yourselves and not be around people that have this, then the rest of us could go on with our lives because it's not going to affect us the same way.
Right.
And what that would do, that would peak that curve, but it would shorten it. Mm-hmm. You're going to have the same amount of, how do I want to say that? You're going to have the same amount of area in the curve, but it's just going to look different. It's going to take on a different shape. Does that make sense? Okay. So, all of these things come into play. Jay on Facebook says media doesn't always tell us the truth. And you're right, they don't always, but they don't always know the truth either. So, kind of like preachers. They don't all know the truth either sometimes. So, as we look at all of those things, what I really wanted to start with all that was to say, some people are actually looking to places like the United Nations or their national governments or their local governments for answers. And sometimes they don't have the answers to give you. Because, disease isn't a political problem. Why would you look, would you go to a lawyer's office if you needed to have a tooth pulled?
No.
Probably not, right? And that's what we're doing. We're depending on these political bodies to answer health-related questions. But, sin's not a political issue either, is it?
No.
So to kind of get into where I'm going with this tonight, we have placed obstacles such as politics or government in our own way. And the result is we're prevented a lot of times from finding the answers that we need. Sometimes we don't find the answers we're really searching because we don't know how to ask the questions properly. And that's something Pam and I have talked about before. You know, we've got to be able to know how to change the answers or the questions to get the answers we're looking for. I see that, Jay. Yes, you're right. We shouldn't go to politicians for truth sometimes either. and there's a whole nother long story that goes with that. Okay. But when we put obstacles on our own way, we block ourselves. And Christians are really, really good at this. Jews are getting better at it all the time too. They've been good at it for a long time because a lot of times, you know, they will have things that stop them from going any farther. Christians are the same way. Christians are looking for, they call this Holy Week, and they're looking forward to something this week. But one of the biggest obstacles Christians put in the way is the cross. Because Christians are really good at either keeping little baby Jesus in a manger, or they'll keep him hanging on the cross, right? But they don't like where he's at now because they don't know how to explain where he's at now. Mm-hmm. And another thing they do is they keep him nailed to that cross. They never look at that empty tomb that they're supposed to be looking at because that's not comfortable for them for some reason. They like the little baby in the manger. They like the idea that he shed blood. But that empty tomb gives them trouble. They don't have a problem with the virgin birth, but they have a problem with resurrection. And I don't understand that. There's entire denominations of the 43,000 denominations that are out there now. There's denominations that say, "Oh yes, he was born from a virgin," but we got a little bit of a problem with the resurrection thing. Okay, I can go back to you either believe the Bible or you don't, but that's part of it. But the cross is a big obstacle because they look at the cross and they forget the teaching. They forget the example that he showed us. They don't want to accept all the things that he taught. They don't want to say, you know what? Blessed are the people who keep peace. Oh, and by the way, at the end of that, in the middle of that, he says, I didn't come to do away with all the things that my Father said you should do. I came here to make sure you're doing it properly. Matthew 5:17 and 18, by the way. If you're looking for that, where that is, go look at Matthew 5:17 and 18. Didn't come to do away with it. I came to show you how to do it right. His way, not our way. Christians are really good at blaming other people for their own problems. They'll blame the Jews. Oh, the Jews killed Jesus. No, it was the Romans that killed Jesus. And it needed to happen. It had to happen. Somebody was going to do it one way or the other. They'll blame Muslims. Oh, those nasty Muslims, we can't do anything with them. It's just terrible. But they're terrible at blaming themselves because they want to do things their own way. And Leviticus 19:14 says, don't curse a deaf man. Don't put something in front of a blind person to make him fall. But you must respect the Almighty. He is God. We know that we shouldn't be a problem for other people, but sometimes we're a problem for ourselves. And Isaiah 58:13 through 59:2, and this actually comes from the International Children's Bible, and I like the way this is stated here. You want to go ahead and read down through to there?
You must obey God's law about the Shabbat, or Sabbath.
Same thing.
You must not do what pleases yourself on that holy day. You should call the Sabbath a joyful day. You should honor the Lord's holy day. You should honor it by not doing whatever work you please on that day. You should not say whatever you please about work on that day. Then you will find joy in the Lord, and I, the Lord, will carry you to the high places above the earth. I will let you eat the crops of the land your ancestor Jacob had. The Lord has said to these things, surely the Lord's power is enough to save you. He can hear you when you ask him for help. Is your evil that has separated you from God, your God? Your sins cause him to turn away from you, and then he does not hear you.
Okay. You didn't emphasize one word there that's really important. In 59 verse 2, it reads, it is your evil that has separated you from your God. Your sins that have caused him to turn away from you. You know, God doesn't change. He stays the same. It's us. It's what we do. It's the actions we take that mess things up. Always was. But it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. I want to look at 1 Kings 19 through 21. And this is where Elijah selects Elisha. Because there's getting ready to be what's the word I want to use? A transition of authority. But Elijah needs somebody he can depend on. And this is kind of cool. It says, Elijah left and went and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing in a field with a team of oxen. There were 11 teams ahead of him. Elisha was plowing with the 12th team of oxen, and Elisha came up to Elijah. Elijah took off his coat, put it on Elisha. Then Elisha left his oxen and ran to follow Elijah. And Elijah said, let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, then I will go with you. Elijah answered, that's fine, go back, I won't stop you. Elisha went back, he took his pair of oxen, he killed them, and he used the wooden oak for a fire. Then he cooked the meat, gave it to the people, and they ate it. And Elisha went and followed Elijah and became his helper. This is so important. And how does that fit with what I'm talking about already? It's this simple. We started last night with Passover saying it was about the journey. It's about the people leaving Egypt, leaving something behind, but there was always something wanting to go back, something holding them back, something pulling them back. Sometimes we put our own roadblocks in front of us because we might not want to go around, we might not want to go over. We like it back where we were. We might have liked it in Egypt. It was fun in Egypt. Yeah, it was work. But it was fun work, right? At least we're not thirsty in the desert. At least we're not hungry. At least we don't have to eat all this. Oh, manna again today. Can't you find a different way to cook it? Complaining, right? And then we have Isaiah saying, look, it's your sin. You've put this roadblock in front of yourself. Elisha didn't put a roadblock in front of himself. In fact, Elisha remembered the lesson from Passover. He says, if I don't cut this off right now, I might be tempted to come back here. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be tempted because, plowing with a team of oxen, that's kind of hard work. But it's fun work. I like it here, right? No, he slaughtered his oxen, and he cooked the oxen, and he fed all the people. He said his goodbyes, and then they left. And it actually makes me wonder if Yeshua didn't get, there's Francisco. It makes me wonder if
Hi,
Yeshua
Francisco.
didn't get what he said in Luke 9:62. Yeshua declares, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom." The Israelites last night, we learned, left Egypt, but they kept looking back. They kept wanting to go back. God separated an entire huge piece of water. The Sea of Aqaba is huge. And he separated it, and they walked through it. He closed it, said, "Now you can't go back this way. You'll never be able to go back this way." Elisha kills 2 of his father's oxen. Okay? And then he burns the yoke that was holding them together to cook them. There's no going back now. The old man's mad, right? Mm-hmm. These folks don't go back. They don't look back. Yeshua said, anybody who puts his hand to the plow and keeps looking back, they're not ready. They are just not ready. They haven't figured out what it is that they need to move forward for. They're afraid to move forward. Maybe they put their own roadblock up. Maybe they like plowing the field with a team of oxen. It's fun, right? Maybe they like gathering their own straw and making bricks. Maybe they like making bricks without straw. I don't know. Whatever your hang up is, and I wish Sean was watching that, because he's got the hashtag Hurts, Habits, and Hang-Ups. Whatever that is that you have, that roadblock is that's stopping you from moving forward, that's what you need to tear down. Mm-hmm. You know, the people who really get it, like Elisha, he understood, if I don't separate myself from what's holding me back, I'll never be able to move forward. Mm-hmm. And we need to have that same understanding. We've got to be there. We can't continue to put these imaginary roadblocks up in front of us. We can't continue to say, well, my government says this, so I can't do that. Well, yeah, you can, because if you're wise, now I'm not saying that you need to go gather with 5,000 people in a building and worship at a time when there's, this mess we got going on. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you find other ways to do it. Mm-hmm. You make use of the things you have to keep moving forward. It's you do what you need to do to accomplish the task at hand. Mm-hmm. You improvise, you adapt, and you overcome. It's that simple. When we were living in Colorado, working on the ranch, I was out one day, and they had this old Jeep, but not like a little Jeep. It was they call them scramblers. It was kind of like the little miniature Jeep pickups that they had back in the late 60s, I believe, when they were built, maybe early 70s. And I was going down this fence row fencing, and lo and behold, broke a spring. Well, you don't go very far when the wheel is rubbing on the wheel well. It just doesn't work. And I looked around, and the only thing I had to fix it with was, I had fence posts. Mm-hmm. So out came the fence post, out came the jacked the Jeep up, shoved the fence post in, across the cross beam, took some baling wire and fence wire and wired it all together, so hoped it would hold, and it got me home. Mm-hmm. Okay? You improvise, you adapt, and you overcome. You don't get stuck looking back. You don't get stuck sitting there going, oh, it was so nice when everything was working really well. It was fun when things were working well. It's not so fun now when I've got a problem and I got to fix it. That doesn't do any good. Mm-mm. You've got to do things sometimes to move forward. Now, the joke in our family is, if you're running out of spaghetti sauce, you don't use barbecue sauce as a substitute, because that didn't turn out good, okay? Yeah. But at the same time, You're putting forth an effort. I understood the effort. Work, I got that part. It just tasted terrible. But there's other things you do. I mean, I've seen you substitute things for cooking when it's like, oh, I don't have this, so I'll use that. Something you had. And this week, especially, you have to kind of be adaptable with what you eat because, we've gotten rid of the leaven, all that good stuff. You don't do that this particular week because it is the week of unleavened bread. And that does remind me, I did get a message today. Can't remember the person's name that sent it to me, though. Oh, sorry about that if you're listening. Anyway, it said, thank you for explaining last night. I thought Passover meant the whole week. They didn't realize that Passover was just the meal event and that unleavened bread was the whole week, and then first fruits is in the middle of the week. So I appreciate that. Even though I can't remember who sent it to me. That's terrible. Oh, well. Where was I going with that? You don't get stuck worrying about looking backwards. You don't get stuck putting obstacles in front of yourself. You look at what obstacle may have been put in front of you, and you figure out, do I need to go over it, or under it, or around it? Because nothing should be able to separate you from your destination. Hopefully, your destination is the New Jerusalem, right?
That's it.
Don't allow the enemy to drive a wedge between you and your Creator. You see what I'm doing there, right? Okay, it's working, right? Whatever your final mission is, whatever completes your assignment, don't let somebody else's obstacle be put there, and don't put one there yourself. Don't be somebody who says, well, I'd like to do that, but I'm not sure I've got what it takes. If you're really meant to do that, the Almighty will make sure you have what it takes. Don't doubt Him. If He's truly telling you, go from here to there on this path, you take the path because you have what it takes to get there. Absolutely every time. Don't be one of these people who are willing to say, oh, yeah, it was kind of tough making bricks with no straw, but I'd rather be there than out here thirsty in the desert. When you walk out of your own personal Egypt, whatever it might be, you're going to find yourself in your personal desert, and you're going to be thirsty. You're going to be wanting to go back and drink the bloody water out of the Nile, right? You're going to be wanting to go back and swat flies and scratch lice and whatever else that you were doing back there because you thought it would have been fun. Don't do that. You keep moving forward. You look to someone who can say, oh, we need water? Let me ask God what we can do to this bitter water to make it sweet. Oh, you're hungry? Let's find out what God tells us that we should be looking for, whether it happens to be quail or whether it happens to be manna. And don't complain about what they feed you. It's that simple. You go from point A to point B. And on that journey, you're hopefully going to learn that the Almighty has some very special instructions for you. I advise you to follow the instructions because it's a whole lot easier if you follow the instructions. If you know what the instructions are, it doesn't matter what anybody else tries to put in front of you. It's not going to work. Because at that point, if you know what the instructions are, you're the only one that's going to be able to block your own way. Don't be a person that blocks your own way. Just leave Egypt. Go get the instructions. Go from point A to point B. Whatever your path may be. If your particular path is, helping people, go help people. If your particular path is teaching young children, go teach young children. If your particular path is I don't know. Pick a path. We aren't limited. We have a very, very short list of things he tells us to avoid. There is an unlimited list of things that we have available to us. Okay? That's all I had for this evening. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Because you're being awful quiet over there tonight.
I'm fine.
Yeah, you're fine? Okay, I know. I made you read so much last night, you're dry. You're still not wanting to talk. But, ladies and gentlemen, we certainly do appreciate all of the kind words, all the good things you keep telling us. Keep praying for us. Keep supporting us in whatever way you want, whatever way is available to you. Don't forget, nothing's going on this weekend. For all the
Sunday, right?
Sunday is Easter for all the Christians that are out there. Sunday is first fruits for everyone else. I shouldn't have said it that way. Sunday is first fruits. If you want to understand first fruits, start with Leviticus 23. Start with Leviticus 23. I was going to do something on that very special for this weekend. Quite honestly, with everything else that was going on, I just didn't have a chance to put all that together. We were going to meet and do something, and it works a whole lot better in person than it does just talking about it. So
It does.
go ahead and study up on that, read up on it. It's well worth it. It might not be what your pastor might be trying to convince you it is. Trust me, your first fruits doesn't have anything to do with money. All right? Just that simple. Don't get caught in that trap. And I'm not going down that path tonight. Thank you for watching, everyone. We certainly do appreciate everything you've done for us. We will see you live next Thursday, and I'll have something for you on Monday. Take care until then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.